basically asked Hannah Lavery, the poet, playwright, writer, performer, absolute legend, for her to put together some top picks of her favourite spoken word artists. So yeah, I'm going to hand it over to Hannah, she's curated the show for us. She's hosting it as well. We are going to sit back, relax, and let Hannah tell you a bit more about what we've got in store for you. But everyone, have a drink. It's 8 o'clock on a Sunday evening. I should also punt the live podcast that we're recording at 9:30 with the comedian Bryce Drennan. So I'm going to hand it over. Everyone make lots of noise at home for Hannah. Woo-hoo!
Hi. Thank you very much, Kat and Kevin, for giving me this opportunity to bring together three of my favourite poets working in Scotland and beyond. I don't know. I realise I've spent so long getting your bios, everyone, working out what poems I'm going to read. I haven't worked out the whole hosting bit. So I know that we're used to Kat and Kevin's seamless links, where mine might be a little more clumsy. But I was thinking today, it feels like it's been a long time since I've been inside a church, but I thought maybe we could feel that this is a sort of, not religious experience necessarily, but maybe something akin to like a Sunday night kind of, I don't know. I don't even know where I was going with that. As I said, I should have really thought this through. But yes, welcome everybody. I am going to, I thought maybe I'd start off with reading a couple of poems, and then I will pass over to Nazim, who will be our first poet up. Sunday session, that's much better, Kevin, than come to church. Right. Okay. So I imagine a lot of you are this year's been a lot of Zoom. You might have even done a few Zoom writing workshops. I did a course earlier this year, and it wasn't by Kevin or anyone. So this is not about anyone you might know, but this was I had this experience doing a Zoom workshop where, well, just read it, see what you think. But it was about those sort of teachers, those writers who are not really that interested in the people that they're teaching, and maybe a little bit kind of, anyway, let's see. So this is called Writing Workshop on Zoom. My headphones cancel the outside and bring in the sound of the sea. To think 3 of you are in snowdrifts and I'm here in this dampening place. I did not walk 4 miles to dig out my car, but my daughter came home with the dog and I picked her coat from the floor and hung it up on the peg. As they talk, I promise myself the woods. He tells us his window is open in that English city to let in the morning air. I worry that doing that here would bring in the har. From his open window to his phone, I catch the edge of it as she talks of starlings. He acts the judge and executioner, big man, showman. She offers a half-formed thought. It is beautiful. He develops it to bad exposure, gives it up as his glorious insight. She switches off her camera. Thanking him for his cruelty. Taking the awkward silence as confession, he plays priest. He gives the good news. And I open another tab to read my emails. Out my window, my grandmother appears. Take his fucking head off. He calls me, I smile, hiding my teeth, think to leave completely, but then she starts to talk about being a daughter, and the farmer speaks of love, and if I try hard to focus beyond this dodgy connection, I can almost make it out of this glare to her hell steps, to a wetland in a city, his willow coffin on a rock face with names etched in. But how do I tell them? My grandmother has come, and I don't want to be here anymore. As I think to tell the farmer I've fallen in love with his lover wrapped in a rainbow, he interrupts to tell us all what he has decided we are. Do you want the bad news? I promise myself the woods. The next day I'm undone, I am nothing but noise, but he brought my grandmother in from the har, and knowing he will see it as his victory, knowing she has been brought up here like bile, knowing all this, I let her dance for him, her ink feet walk across the line, thanking him for his cruelty. I leave meeting. And I wrote this. This is my. I'll do this one, and then we'll introduce Nazim. But this poem I wrote sort of in a bit of a rage about especially some of the discussions around free speech and who's getting cancelled and who's not and all of that. So this is called Abigail, and this is from, if anyone remembers reading Crucible, I did it at high school, I don't know if you remember the Crucible. So this is about that. And it's called Abigail Says She's a Witch. They are resurrecting the witch, pulling charred corpses from the pit for reburial, an easy metaphor. The oddballs, the freaks, wearing the devil's mark, gather at the gate, hands held, carrying sage. I am a witch, Abigail says, barring the way to them, to Tituba, rise and out from her memory, her finger pointing, her fist raised. I am a witch, Abigail echoed in likes, an inch by column inch. I am true, and they gather with proclamations, general the troops for ritual purge, and in all this cutting down, firewood, new pyres, in all this throwing of rocks, flint, old fire. In free speech thrown, the struck are silenced, as they always were. In their monster mask, hangman's hoods, cowbell, shackle, millstone, but Abigail says she's a witch. I am the hunted, is handed pitchfork, tiki torch, the stage, her flowers, her applause, her encore. Bravo, bravo, all hail the witch, all hail the witch. Okay, so I'm going to introduce you to one of my not only favourite poets, but one of my favourite people. I've had the real pleasure this year to really, it's been like over the last year to be doing weekly workshops with Nazim. And Nazim has gone on this last year to be awarded the New Writers Award for Poetry, which was incredible. And her work is really sensational. So you're in for a treat. I'm going to do one of the little bio now, so just bear with me. NASIMREBECCA Azul is a poet and journalist. Originally from Washington, Tyne and Wear, she's called Scotland her home since 2017. Her poetry has appeared in Gutter magazine, Modern Poetry in Translation, and Middle Ground magazine, and this year she was awarded the Scottish Book Trust's New Writers Award for Poetry. Okay, so everyone put your hands together for Nazim.
Thank you, Hannah. That was super, super sweet. I was literally just saying to Hannah before you guys got here that it sometimes feels like she's my mom. Like Hannah is very much my poetry mom. So it's really nice that she picked me for this because everybody wants to be one of the favourite children. So I've got a few poems for you. Some of them are new, some of them are a bit older, but some of them I think are just kind of my favourite stuff I've got. So I thought it would be a nice Sunday session, as Kev's called it. So this first one is about those kind of moments that I don't know, I often get them and I assume other people do, where you're having a sort of existential crisis and you're kind of rethinking everything that's going on in your life while you're just having like a really good shower. So this is Exfoliation. The razor dances on my skin, crossed up scratch, missed a spot back, one leg stares, soft, young, clean. Goodbye, dark hairs that dare to tumble from Asian limbs. I was 11 when I stole my father's razor for the first time, a bit on virgin skin, trying to fit in. Plastic beads storm the beach, my body bakes when it hits the water, pressed gently on my side, hugs my hips like an annoying child. Hello, beauty, and goodbye, dead skin. Little cause of me, shake, cry, flake, spin, spin, sink into waves. What had they seen, these microscopic me's? I hope they got to know the world, and not just the blade that severed them from the loving arms of my calf. What had they seen? I remember reading once that it takes the human body 7 years to renew every single cell, which means that one day, this body will not be the body branded by bruises I can't bring myself to remember. I won't count the rosary with these scars, and approximately 973 days from now, he will be a stranger in more than just the name. My limbs won't miss missing him, but that doesn't explain the hurt I feel when blood balloons if the razors touch soreness that says a heart has missing parts. I look at my hands. Eventually, these hands will not be the hands that held my mother. These fingers will not have stroked my dying grandma's hair. I don't want to wake up one day and not see their shadows on my skin. Can I stop the exodus? I know there are thoughts that go deep into the body, weeps seep into sinew, twine into the marrow of bones. They say traumas inherited in DNA can't be shorn away, but still, I don't recognize memories of all the different incarnations of myself. So in the quiet moments of the dark, I scrape, peel, pull away layers of all the girls I know I've been. Some cells thrive in me that I think are poisoned, but I'd rather blame my shell than my soul. And all the while, my old skin still spirals down the sink. So that was a piece I wrote a few years ago, actually, but it was published in the Scottish BAME Writers Network anthology that they did a couple of years ago, maybe 2019, 2018, called Ceremony by Tapsaltiri Press, if anybody wants to find that, and work by some really, really cool writers as well. So this next one I'm going to do is actually one that was born from a workshop Hannah did. Promise I'm not like a complete stalker of her, but she's just great. And again, it's featured in the Scottish BAME Writers Network's audio anthology that was again curated by Hannah. So that's somewhere on SoundCloud if you fancy digging it out. And you know, again, there's loads of really cool writers kicking about in that. So go give it a listen. And this is called Post Match. My brother and I picked up our tools. On tiptoes, he gathered supplies like bundles of wood. Toys, lamps, pillows, all spilling from the shoots of his arms. I struck gold in the warm void of the airy cupboard and brought him our man's favourite cotton sheet. Our hands worked quickly to reassemble his bedroom, rebuilding a cavern under his desk. Silence nestled between us. Cushions strewn like leaves in a forest were our thrones. The smell of persil dripped like rain over our grass-stained knees. We drowned out the thunder of our father with the crinkle, the rustle of cheese and onion crisps. Together, we roosted under a canopy of fairy lights, warmed ourselves in the glow of Nintendo DS, and whispered cheat codes to each other until late into the night. So I thought I would do that one actually because I was home this weekend, and yesterday evening, because I'm really cool and it was a Saturday night, me and my brother sat and played Pokemon Snap on the Nintendo Switch for ages. So it just kind of like felt like, you know, even though we're not kids anymore, some things are still the same, which is it's quite nice to have sort of constancy at the minute. So the next two I'm going to do were written last month as part of National Poetry Writing Month. It's like the 4th time I've tried to do it. And this year I got 7 poems, which is like a new record. So you're going to hear 2 of them and I'm going to force them on you because I've written them, so they might as well get heard. And this first one is called Backgammon by the Caspian Sea. When I bear off my rousserie and hoist my manteau to my elbows, your finger twitches. The next move is yours. A chadored blot on an expanding beach, ghost sand between your toes. You button up, counterplay with tasbih, each orb a drop of the sun you roll between your fingers. Aftabi ast, I say, and point to the sky, but you refuse to follow my arm. We pretend not to see the sanderlings starving before our shadows, or the eagle owls nesting in the bordered runes of a bar. Your fist clenches fabric that swirls heart height. I find shell after shell after shell. I hold my scavenged treasures to my ears. Check, swing, shake from them azan, the last call for breakfast, memories of waves rolling at our feet. I resign, reveil, re-robe, fold my chips back into the vanishing sea. Victory flushed, you pocket your beads, smile, and lead me back inland. BR. Quite a lot of my, I probably should have mentioned actually, quite a lot of my poetry, I use sort of Persian words. Most of them are kind of quite domestic sort of things I grew up speaking. And I don't always translate them, but hopefully you kind of still get a gist of what was going on. I don't tend to use an awful lot. So I was really lucky actually in January, I think, at some point this year, but dates have all just sat in this chair the entire time. I took part in a series of workshops led by Mara Menzies and the Scottish Storytelling Centre. And at the end of that, I sort of like did a story, told a story, I guess is probably the right way of saying it. And it wasn't kind of like in poetry, it wasn't like a poem. But some of the techniques and stuff I learned during that, I've kind of applied to my poetry since, I think. And this is a bit of a long one, so hopefully you can kind of follow it. And that I think draws on a lot of those kind of storytelling techniques that I learned there. But it's a bit more sort of experimental considering the things I usually do. So hopefully you enjoy it. And it's called Bar in the Rhubarb Stalk. I am 9 again, curls plaited, berry brown. I bound downstairs and find a rabbit in the garden, tawny fluff bounding through the grass. I try to catch it, but the patio door won't open. I trapped. I pound my hands on glass that melts around my fingers. Our rhubarb patch, my baba's pride and joy, grows wild in the northwest corner. He planted the seeds himself after the cuttings he took from Sabalan were deemed psychosanitary certificateless, confiscated. So he began anew. And now the bunny edges close, ignores my warnings, snuffles, twitches. When the grass is severed, the whole plant swells. My baba bursts from the inside of a stem, Masha reborn. The rabbit flees from his shadow. I twist my wrist and beg for help, but Baba can't hear me. He picks up the half-shorn leaf, kneels, cradles, cultivated fragments of his homeland in the palm of his hands. When the whole plant shifts, he whimpers, and then the stems shoot skyward, grown a sudden rush, taller and taller and taller, a beanstalk, straight to the heavens. The rhubarb plows past the moon station, the star station, the sun station, until the firmament splits and a figure appears. I squint. Maman Berserk is sitting at the top of the stalks. She waves a tiny hand at me. My father glances back, then up towards his loss. He starts to climb, clambers leaf to leaf, sweat beads pouring as rain. With each new hand and foothold, a piece of himself plummets to the earth. I watch helpless as my siblings tumble past. My mum floats down to catch them. A stream of factory jobs drop from his arms. Hard hats, high vis, steel-capped shoes fall in a flurry. The BMW he always dreamed of is shaken from his hair. There goes a terraced house in South Shields, a dingy London flat. 60 birthdays, the sisters still in Tehran. Dead uncle. Years spent in uniform on the ocean. The cypress tree from his childhood home, all dripping from his pockets. The deluge of his memories floods the garden. They lap against the patio doors, and still Baba climbs, climbs, climbs. His mother reaches out her hand to him and he takes it. I try to do the same, but the sky closes behind them. The window shatters. Palms bleeding, I stagger among the debris of his life, looking for a way to join him, but the shrunken rhubarb unroots its roots, and the rabbit carries it away. I'm trying to work on poetry that's kind of of it, and that one's partially inspired by one of the sort of creation myths that floats around, that the human race was kind of born from a rhubarb plant, which feels kind of random, but I just kind of like it. And then one last quick one from me is a bit twinklier, and it's based on the kind of Japanese legend that if you fold 1,000 paper cranes, then you get a wish. Origami. Imagine dragons and freelance whales, spiraling past shadow realms and tumbling into our heavens. Under the beat of wings and enormity, we're folding desperate stars with desperate fingers, bleeding dust through broken skin. My shaking hands found worlds. Blue, cut, crease, turn, twist, repeat. I fill tiny globes with my own oxygen. Breathe. Sharp edges soft. Your right eye squints through an eyelash forest. Checkered sleeves watching from your elbows. As your hands stroke and coax the paper birds into being and kiss life into the creases of their necks. Creation blossoms in the corner of your mouth. Hurtlen, we birth an army of cranes. We release them as oblivion rests on the horizon. Floating on the edge of our breath, they pass into nebulas, and we're rewarded with the whisper of a wish. And that was my set. So thank you very much again, Hannah, for having me, and to Kat and Kevin for all that you've done this weekend. And I will hand back.
Oh, Nazim, that was beautiful. I did say we were going to go to church, and we did. That was gorgeous. I was thinking, one of the reasons why I read that poem about Abigail, and was because I often feel that we talk a lot about who doesn't get to tell their story. And I feel tonight that I've chosen 3 of not only my favourite poets, but poets who speak into the silence and tell the stories that we don't get to hear. So that was beautiful, Nazim. And that my favourite is about you and your brother. I love that poem so much. So I'm going to introduce Courtney Stoddart. So Courtney is just the most incredible human being, the most incredible poet, and I'm lucky to have her in my life. She's a Scottish Caribbean poet and performer, born and raised in Edinburgh. Having only started performing in April 2019, Courtney has received many great opportunities. In June 2019, Courtney took part in the BBC World's First, making it to the final 12. In the same year, she was invited to Rio de Janeiro to perform at one of Brazil's well-renowned literary festivals, and was cast in my play, The Lament. I'm reading the bio that Courtney sent in, which is why the surprise. She was cast in and played wonderfully, performed beautifully in The Lament for Sheikh Bayo. And for 2021, she was announced as the Ignite Fellow for the Scottish Book Trust. So put your hands together for the incredible Courtney Stoddart.
Oh, thank you so much, Hannah. So yeah, I'm going to do 3 poems. I'm going to do a slightly older one, and then I'm going to do 2 newer ones. So yeah.
You're on mute, Courtney.
Oh no, was I on mute that whole time?
No, just the last bit.
All right, okay. So I don't think I can change my screen actually, because I'm doing it on my phone. Okay, right, we'll just have to go with it. So, yeah, this first poem is called Tears of a White Woman, and it's really just about the power of emotion when it is wielded, and both sort of historically and in the modern day. So this is Tears of a White Woman. Sometimes I feel like she cries more than I sleep. I'm trying to tell you how I feel, but the threat of tears becomes so real, it's a weapon. White supremacy's biggest mass deception, a tool of silence and oppression, a threat we have to live with every day. That no matter what I say, your waterworks may twerk my way. And no matter what the issue, I will be asked to grant the tissue and be respectful. Never mind your progressive bullshit, I will be asked to retract my statement and be labelled as aggressive. And as you try to redirect it, well, my bones become affected, and I remember your collective rules this world. The real war on terror is the weaponized emotion in your word. Your power to silence in the most romantic form of violence known to women. The sheer power of emotion as tears of swords fall to the ocean. They turn the waters from blue to white. My tears never quite reach the mark. They are fire, but no one sees the spark, unlike yours. Without even an explanation, your words are taken as verbatim, rest assured. And no matter how unkind, your words take higher place than mine. Delicate features are so fine, but within your mouth lies bloodied teeth. Your words are cut but hide the knife, hung without the noose, death without the life, and lies without the truth. Your words are battle without war. They are the pimp without the whore. Your words are white without the colour. They are norm without the other. Pregnancy without the birth. They're both the blessing and the curse. Your words are white without supremacy, colonial without dependency, holy without God. She cried rape and it was done. Black man hung, cut out his tongue. For how dare he even dream of flesh so pure? She said Emmett Till called her baby. She told daddy and he made sure that Emmett could utter words no more. His mother identified the body, and from that can there ever be recovery? A mother's grief lost her boy aged just 14. Out hung one of his eyes, but he's not the one who cried when he supposedly stepped over colour lines. The white woman did. She pours tears from her eyes and blood from her hands as she knows she did demand. Oh no, I'm scared. He called me baby. Well, maybe my man will save me. And his killers were acquitted, justified and rest omitted, an unremitting stain on skin so pure. And it was an all-white jury, so can you imagine their pure fury at being asked to question these men's guilt? A nigger is still a nigger after he's killed, and though not the exact same today, the parallels come out to play. White woman silences with words she does not even have to say. A weapon so destructive you don't need no cash to buy. Just wrong a white woman and watch a tear fall from her eye. A mere tissue cannot dry the flood of tears I've had to cry to wash away the dirt inflicted by skin so pure. Sometimes I wish for death, wish to inhale my last breath, but is black woman still black woman after she's died? Will no one remember those tears that she cried? Thank you very much. So I'm going to go on to my the next poem, which is fairly whimsical title, I feel, but I seek to do my mother well and watch my tongue, for we both know it can escape me. I speak with a fire lit from my lungs, and I do well not to let it shake me. They say that sins, they split the soul, but who are we if we cannot build anew from parts which were once whole? On the ground. My mother says I shouldn't frown or the wind will change. She uses these expressions, and in my youth, I always thought them strange. Our ancestral clouds are heavy, they're waiting to burst into rain. Fertilizer on the ground is calling out my name. She tells me, look beyond your pain, writhing, shaking, playing games of who or what is next to blame. I used to whisper in shallow waters. Forgot I was my mother's daughter. I tried to cleanse in murky river, tried to clean the bloodstains from my clothes. I was waiting to deliver, thought my breath, it had been stole. I doth quake and I doth quiver, but the moon, she held me close, both the receiver and the giver. She told me, woman, wake up to your power. You are saint and you are sinner. The sun rises in the east, it don't mean she's a beginner. As she traverses to the west, continues her cycle after rest, and you two complete this great process. So take those bloodstained clothes out of that river and run home now, girl, before you start to shiver. She said, stop running from your problems and they will cease to chase you. And from her words, I recalled the prophecy of what I'm here to do. I seek to treat my mother, for we both know it can escape me. I speak with a fire lit from my lungs, and I do well not to let it shake me. And with bloodstains on my clothes, sodden, wet and heavy, I am lifted from the ground with great gumption and such levy. Rage simmers in my bones. It's seductive and it's ready. It's burning like hot stones, moss and ivy, green with envy. I seek to cleanse it from my sinew. As I whisper to shallow graves, watch my furor fall from my lips, and I watch the road it paves, watch whispers of silent rage unearthing as it's twirling, searing up through hallowed veins. And my mother tells me, calm yourself, girl. Fire can't fight against these waves, girl. Let go of all this shame, girl. And I remember, I seek to love my mother well and watch my tongue, for we both know it can escape me. And though this fire rests within my lungs, I seek to never let it break me. They say that sins, they split the soul, but who are we if we cannot build anew from parts which were once whole, from ash-worn pieces strewn upon the ground? Thank you very much. So my final poem is called This is Scotland. Sorry, my screen's gone all funny. You force Scotland down my throat, and I no longer want to taste it. Scotland bears no warm embraces, sighing lies seep into blankets of blue and white. They cease to keep me warm. Did they ever keep me warm? Bone broth is not a remedy when crowds of midges swarm, and in your grey and overcast, your fag butts on the street. Sun and rain, it overlaps, and in some sense you seem complete. But when you say this is Scotland, the words just don't sound clean. Because I see rivers of blue and white, clapping hands and football teams. I see feet tripping over discarded bones and rotting wounds disguised as healthy flesh. There's an atlas carved upon my back, and I can't put it down to rest. It's etched into my skin, leading me in and out of shadow. The wretched spills in pen and ink what is sanctum, what is hallowed, when it sits inside the vestiges of empire. The voices of imperialism bellow down these drafty corridors lined with Her Majesty's officers. And in this country, there's humiliation that comes with this skin. It sinks into my bones, bitter sleet and icy cold. I isolate my ugly and I burn my palms and my fingertips. In an effort to glean warmth, I bear fire as my only witness. I've had my dignity stripped in this Dunedin. I've fought this callous concrete and tough terrain, my earth parched dry and blood-stained. I stood dutifully waiting patiently for your rain and storm. And I watched those crowds of midges swarm, and I saw through bloodshot eyes and heavy lids how the hungry and the sick pick words from dictionaries and try to make them stick to your raw and bloody flag. Discarded bones and a gracious knack for syntax, all dressed up in blue and white rags. And in this Eden, this Scotland, its histories breed borders and hang crosses upon doors, just following orders. Bannockburn battles broadened into Culloden fields. Enmeshed scents of blood, pollen and Cullen skink, chains of Jamaicans clink with surnames of Mac. Check the maps, head to Dundee, Elgin Town or Aberdeen. Scottish seeds sown between struggling legs in the Caribbean and these splendid merchant cities. New towns embellished with sugar and gold, claims to have recognised malfeasance of old, yet still your universities war crimes. As bairns are singing old nursery rhymes, your secrets secrete and creak in musty, close too close for comfort, claustrophobic, too close to the coward slave. And what a man, Burns tales are told across this land, while Melville monuments cast shadows on lies of emancipation. Please, it's a thing of the past and needs an explanation, but this is Scotland and this is now Scottish government supporting wars abroad, impoverished people on its own shores. Scotland sailed on its own sword. Scotland was then. Scotland is now your melting pot of captains, doctors, slave owners and abolitionists entwined, priests, starving children and refugees, all somehow aligned on ley lines, some with rebellion in the loins and some seeking oppression of the mind. And there are those who hold the keys to your chains and mine, our blood congealed. They conceal revolutions of the working class, how crass they catch our histories in nets. There's an atlas carved upon my back and I can't put it down to rest, not yet, lest we forget. I see history repeating itself. Cycles of idols and icons burning, we yearning, quenching the thirst for freedom, taking turns, sewing the tapestries of subversion, singing songs of sedition. And though revolution is a bloody, bloody dream for me, I am fortunate enough that I still sleep every night. Thank you very much. Thanks so much, Hannah, for having me. And thanks to Kat and Kev as well. Thank you so much.
Oh, Courtney, you are just something else. Something else, my love. Really beautiful. What a privilege to be part of this night, actually. So wonderful. I'm going to read another poem before we move on to the wonderful Marjorie LOTFI. This is called The Long Walk. Jamaica, Burma, India, Scotland. I have rubies sewn in, and he says that this is where I am. This room with its 3-bar heat. In afternoon stupor, Bing Crosby emerges from his throat. We sit here in this cardboard house, tea drinking and bickering like cats. But I have these blisters buried deep, and a whip of the fronds on my back, and even in this central heat, I am cold, sweat. In my hand is my sister's hand, holding Auntie's tiffin tin, still putting off the chore of serving her lunch in her cane chair, in her golden throne. Buddha Aunt. I light the candles in the cathedral, incense in the temple, hold ledger and spice, swinging her tiffin offering, pushing over my ayah to run by the lagoon, calling out for my brother to be met by Grandma Creole at the shore, reaching in to our great ruby days with our old shackles, taking my sister from my arms, leaving me her hand always to hold. This handing down of corpses. We wear bones, smuggle them with their golden bangles, each one an inheritance to hold, as our neighbours lay down in the ditch to die, our black crone pulling at the tree, handing my mother an urgent of fronds for when they put us out like rats in their kitchen, like bats in their attic. She hands down the palm switch, and in this refuge he croons, "This is the end of my story, but I carry these blisters and hold out this lash of bound leaf." He gets out another pot of tea and fetches the packet of McVitie's. "I will like this one," he announces, and we spend the rest of our day watching my war made real with white faces. I say it wasn't like that, except the planes. The planes were really bombed before we could get to them. We really did have to walk. Did you? No, I tell my granddaughter. My mother made a switch from a palm tree to whip me up the road when I wanted to lie down and die. You wanted to die, she cries. Her eyes, my own eyes, looking back. Okay, so this is we're going to end our night with the wonderful Marjorie LOTFI, who is such a wonderful friend and mentor and inspiration to me. I spent a wonderful time in your belonging workshops a long time ago now, and found belonging with you. And I don't think that's ever stopped for me. So a little bit about Marjorie. Marjorie has been writing about belonging and the places in between. Her poems have won competitions, been widely published in the UK and abroad, performed on BBC Radio 4 even. Refuge, her beautiful pamphlet, which I have got here. Here we go. Refuge by Tapas Theory. See? It's poems about her childhood in revolutionary Iran, and is published by Tapas Theory Press. She was an Ignite Fellow for the Scottish Book Trust and writes as part of the 12 Collective. We've definitely had a Scottish Book Trust night, haven't we? I think I'm the only person that hasn't got any. I got the Reader Champion thing one day. Anyway, Marjorie, I'm going to pass over to you. So.
Okay. Thanks so much, Hannah, and thanks for that lovely introduction. It's a mutual feeling, so I'm going to tear in because I know there's not much time left. I wrote this first poem for Hannah, really, and for the Fringe of Colour last year, and I think it probably speaks for itself. It's called They Want. They want me to write a poem, they say, and hand me a pencil, the kind that smudges charcoal along my page, the lead too soft, made for the crosshatch of shading, not these sharp-edged words. And they give me a single piece of paper. That should do, they say, and remember to stay within the lines. They want me to write a poem, they say, and remind me that I should write from left to right, and I don't have the heart to tell them again that I cannot write in the direction of my people, that I am still one of them, that they've got nothing to fear. And as I lift the pencil, they suggest that they'd like me to write a poem, they say, about the revolution, maybe, about what I could see between the bars of my bedroom window as a girl, the burned out cars and blackout, the martyrs in their white robes out long after curfew, just daring the tank gunner to do his job. A poem, they say, about what they did to each other, those people. They don't want me to write a poem, they say, about the white part of my family. Not that, they say, definitely not the white part, but maybe driving through riots, the disembodied hands across our windscreen, the Revolutionary Guards with guns slung across their bodies like little boys with backpacks. They want me to write a poem, they say, about that last flight out and how we almost missed it and who was standing in the aisles and why my mother was wearing all her rings at once, and what other treasures we had piled into our only suitcase as if we weren't treasure enough. And if there's still room on the page, could I write a poem, they say, about all the things we left behind, not leaving off the samovar and the Persian carpets and my brown father? Could I write a poem, they say, that stops right there? They don't want a poem about arriving, no thank you, about being half brown in this white place or being half white in that brown one. They don't want being asked by strangers in streets if we've been adopted by our blonde mother. No. And the karate lessons to protect our shifting accents in the playground, no thank you, and especially not the endless white winter of waiting for Baba. And if you really have to write that part of the poem, they say, could you use the flip side of the page we've provided and keep it short and succinct? And remember, we took you in from a war, though technically it was taking us back. They want me to write a poem, they say, with a pencil and a single sheet of lined paper. They want me to write a poem that says, thank you. Thank you very much. Now that I've got that out of my system, I will, I'm going to read a kind of set of poems that's really about being between two places, I think. The first one was in response to an art exhibition by Emma Hart at the Fruit Market Gallery, which was all kind of road signs. And I was taken with a rear view mirror and an image in black and white. And of course, I had this image of my mother driving us out of Iran, but also a woman fleeing anything, really. It's called Headlamps. She tends the two lights left and right of her headlamps, doesn't care for newsprint or radio, reports of blazes, the world on fire. She can't see the end, which house will be her last or which county, country. She doesn't worry about endings, but light, its absence, the cracking filament, its cocoon of glass-like plastic snapping open under the weight of a stone or an animal's skull. One slow black wing. She doesn't tend what's behind, refuses to look in the rearview mirror with its clarity of black and white. She lets the red lamps of hindsight burn out on a road she's already forgotten. The car is a womb and she is unborn. Where are you from? People ask. She refuses to say. I'm just going to keep on going. This one is about, I think I'll skip one just so we try and finish closer to time. This one's about that borderline between Russia and Ukraine when it came to being, and there was a lot of trouble between it. I have friends who had family on both sides of that border, so I wrote a poem for my friend Marina. It's called Checkpoint Medvedev Kurgan. When her sister moved across the border, there was no border, not even a line like the one they'd drawn in chalk down the center of their bedroom, dividing walls and window, the light parsed out between them like a parent's love. Only the door, its point of entry and exit, was shared. And when their own children were born, they bundled them into cars, passed through glowing checkpoint Sundays, not thinking of them as lines or points on a map, but as traffic signals or a low bridge that never shut, even in high wind. Now, in the still of ceasefire, she finds there's no suspension left. She drives to the edge of no man's land, flings one arm over to the other side like she did as a girl, just before sleep, willing her sister to wake, to clasp her hand and hold it. You can see that this is a theme that's going to run through my poems generally. I was asked to write about the Tay Bridge, the accent around the Tay Bridge. And this is what came, which is again about that sort of the places between people. Bridge. Between us, no midair, no foundation, no girder, but this sinking of stone. Two arcs of steel pointed in opposite directions. Between us, nothing dangles, holds its breath. Nothing waits to happen. We are interrupted mid-flight, mid-wing. We are brought to ground. Not even a tightrope strings between us, no balancing pole for level. We are left with gravity. Let me go. Detach me as a retina. Stop seeing my form in all the spaces between us, your body, mine. Ask for nothing but air, this weather, the passing of time. And I'll just do a couple more, if that's okay. Almost all of these are new, so they're not in that pamphlet, but I won't apologize. This next one is called Hemispheres. I wrote it really about being across the world from loved ones in a pandemic, but just also that idea of re-finding yourself after 20 years of being a stranger in the place that you call home. Hemispheres. I do not recognize your constellations. I do not know this figure, that beast, and when I do not call it by the same name. Big Dipper is plow, Little Dipper, seven sisters, still a cluster, a huddle of light. Even so, the distance between us, a firmament of stars, shifted half an inch, half an hour in the winter sky. Look closely, listen out for my breath. I am only behind your shoulder, following one footstep with another, placing my boots in this dusting of snow, just trying to catch up. And I'm going to read one more, which was supposed to be about me voting last week for the first time in 21 years of working and living and raising a family and paying taxes in this country. I'm really grateful to have been able to vote, but it ended up being about not voting, so apologies. And thanks for listening. In my dream, it is always black and white. The line of people waiting outside, the stone building, flyers in fists, a closed glass door framed in steel. In my dream, an old woman takes my name, checks it against her printout, the long wait as her pencil slides through the letters of my former names, former selves. And I wonder again if I am where I belong, if I've gotten it wrong. In my dream, sometimes she asks me to say it again, LOTFI, spell it out before turning me away. Once in a while in this dream, I'm ushered into a room, handed a card, pointed a space behind a black curtain. I search my pocket for the pencil I know I haven't brought, and then find that every space is already crossed before I push through the exit and walk home in rain to a house that isn't mine, in a country that isn't mine. In my dream, there are never the little ovals to mark for answers I know. Nothing so simple as a number 2 pencil waiting, a button to push, a lever to pull clear away. Thank you all for listening. That was this week.
Oh, Marjorie, that was beautiful.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, just thank you so much, everybody, for listening, and to Marjorie, Nazim, and Courtney. It was so nice that you came to my party, and Kat and Kevin. It was nice that you had my party at your party, and that we've all had parties. And I just think that this week, when we've been talking about what borders we want and what borders we don't, I think that the work that you've brought tonight has been a real tonic and a real, hopefully, makes people think about what it is to belong and not belong, and all of that, I suppose. Okay, I'm passing back even to Kat and Kevin. Thank you again, everybody, for coming along.
Thank you so much for everybody that's joined us tonight. I think a big round of applause for Hannah is in order for her hard work in putting this together. Thank you so much, Hannah, and what a beautiful evening of poetry that was. So yeah, we are going to be taking a wee break, and then the final event of the Sonnet Youth Weekender happens at 9:30. We're doing a live podcast, which will not be chaotic in any way. It's going to be really good fun. And then after that, we're just going to open the room up and just have a couple of drinks and just have that kind of closing party thing that would usually have if this was a physical festival and we're all in the one place. I'm sure we would have a glass of wine afterwards and a wee chat. So we're going to do that as much as we can on Zoom. So yeah, come and join us at 9:30. And thank you once again for being part of the Sonnet Youth Weekender. Cheers, everybody.